Welcome everyone to the weekly crypto recap show where we go over all of the latest news in crypto from the week, and this week has been crazy, absolutely crazy. Welcome back to the show, Chris Karabats, aka Zaphoid from Smartcash.
Hey, Naomi, always happy to be here. It's a
Now,
beautiful Friday.
absolutely, and to start off this beautiful Friday, let's talk about something not so beautiful. So I want to start off this show talking about what you and I did a live stream on yesterday. Now, Julian Assange was arrested and we covered in detail what's going on there. So if anyone wants to check out that video, please do. But for the sake of the audience members here with us right now who don't really know what's going on, let's just give a recap of what has happened there, because it's pretty chilling, the repercussions of what's occurred. Now, yesterday, Julian Assange, after many years in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, he was dragged out by British secret police and arrested on a US extradition order. It's all, I mean, there's so much to talk about here. I don't want to go into too much detail, but do you want to just take over here?
Julian's been hiding in the Ecuadorian embassy in London since 2013, and London wouldn't let them fly him out of the country, so he's just been stuck there with a cat and a beard.
With a
And
cat and a beard.
the cat thing was apparently causing some drama.
I see, I see. Well, I mean,
But
yeah, sorry, keep going.
but so what's not funny is about a week ago, there were leaks out of the Ecuadorian embassy that he would be removed from the embassy within hours or days. Everybody denied it. And then yesterday, he, almost a dozen London police officers went to the Ecuadorian embassy and pulled out Julian Assange. He is now in the custody of London with an extradition request from the units over charges of conspiracy to attack government computers, some charge similar to that. And so they're considering the extradition request. Their justification for pulling him out of the embassy was that he violated his bond back in 2012 when he was charged by Sweden for sexual assault and rape over two women. Those charges, of course, were dropped because there was very little actual evidence of that. And so they still, of course, pulled him because he escaped the bond by asking for asylum with Ecuador. So it's a long thing. The U.S. apparently issued their request back in March of 2018, and they've been just slowly trying to work things out with Ecuador since then to get custody of Julian. And that will follow up shortly into the article we're about to talk about, hinting at how they may have worked things out with Ecuador.
Yeah, no, there's so many layers of things going on there. And one thing I do want to mention is that when Julian Assange was pulled out of the embassy yesterday, there was one media outlet there. Now, you think about all of the media outlets that have been just sitting outside of that embassy for however many years, and just in the last couple of weeks we've been hearing hints saying, and WikiLeaks itself has been posting tweets saying there are rumors that Julian Assange is going to be arrested at any given day. He is going to be kicked out of the embassy. Like, all of this stuff was going on, and apparently 2 days ago all the media outlets left except for a subsidiary of RT. So that in itself seems very strange there. It seems like, I mean, this whole narrative seems to be controlled about what's going on, and it seems that mainstream media is very much towing the line with what the government wants the narrative to be.
It makes zero sense for any of the media to leave after the rumors came out that he would be taken. I mean, that is when they would send more people there. So it's obvious that somebody told them that they shouldn't be there, and so they left. But of
Yeah.
course, RT is the black sheep among the media crowd, and they stayed. So now they have the footage that everybody wants to see.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about this extradition charge and what's going on there. I know we covered it all yesterday, but I do want to recap before we go on to the new developments that we've discovered since yesterday. So basically what they're talking about is criminalizing journalism. It's insane. So they're talking about, when you have Twitter trolls kind of responding and saying, oh, what he did was illegal. No one can get past the law. They're really missing the forest for the trees right here. That's not what this is about. What this is about is, there are allegations that, he helped Chelsea Manning hack a password and helped the Assange get into government databases. And, there's all this talk about this, right? And yet this is something that the Obama administration tried for years and years to find proof of, and they couldn't find any proof of it. And then there was the idea of, he encouraged Chelsea to get more information. And by that encouragement, he was aiding and abetting. And the Obama DOJ refused to prosecute or anything or get an extradition request on this information because he said, well, this would be against journalism itself. This is a very scary precedent. We would be criminalizing journalism. We can't go down that route. So they left all of that because there was just nothing to substantiate it. Now you have the Trump administration coming in and saying, oh, yes, because they did what all journalists do and ask their sources for more information, he's a criminal. I mean, this is a scary state of affairs. And the fact that journalists all over the world are not up in arms about this and incredibly vocal about how chilling this is. And I mean, it's terrible.
The resistance is all up in arms over Trump insulting journalists or not talking to Jim Acosta or whatever. And they're completely silent here or even celebrating this as something right and just. It's absolutely ridiculous, especially when basically you have Assange saying to Manning, hey, if you keep looking, I bet you'll find something else, just give me more stuff, like every journalist does with every source they have. Yeah. This is what they do. They want more of a story. And, like Trump, when he said, hey, Russia, if you have those emails, I bet you could find them and leak them for me. This is during the campaign. Trump was asking Russia to find Hillary's lost emails. This is the exact same thing.
I mean, there's a whole lot of double standards going on here, right? So let's talk about some of the new developments that have come on since our show yesterday. So what has happened is we've discovered this press release from the International Monetary Fund, and they say IMF Executive Board approves $4.2 billion extended fund facility for Ecuador. March 11th, 2019. So this is yesterday, the same day that Julian Assange gets arrested in Ecuador, who for years, I totally missed that. All right, so it clearly seems that this happened, and the timing is just crazy on this, right? Because you had years and years of the Ecuadorian administration saying, no, we will not be bullied by America. We will not be bullied. This person has sought asylum. They're going to stay there. We will protect their rights. And then the regime changed, and the new Ecuadorian...
We won't be bullied, but, bribery works.
Yeah, bribery certainly works. And so it's interesting that the regime changes. Ecuador gets this facility funded, and then a month later to the day, Julian Assange... they give the British secret police permission to pull Julian Assange out of the embassy under a U.S. extradition order.
I mean, it's really kind of blatant, right? I mean, what else can you even say about it? It is incredibly blatant. I mean, the IMF is supposed to be independent, yada, 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 whatever. But we know they're not. Everybody knows they're not. And they're just part of the international machine. And what else can you say? Here's $5 billion. Give us who we want.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. One thing that we will mention, so bringing this back to crypto, obviously WikiLeaks and crypto have a very close history and tight relationship, and have done since almost the beginning of Bitcoin. Like since the early days when you had WikiLeaks saying we're going to accept donations, you had Satoshi saying please don't, that would cause a huge flood of people coming over. We're not ready, we need to grow slowly. And then you had finally WikiLeaks accepting Bitcoin donations, and that being the only way for them to receive receive donations. and causing, a lot of people saying that causing the first Bitcoin bull run. So there's been a close relationship there, and we've actually seen Julian Assange has gotten $20,000 in Bitcoin donations in 24 hours. So it's really nice to see people in crypto rallying to the cause.
Yeah, it's great to have people on the side of freedom in the crypto space. As I mentioned yesterday, it's great how even the people who came into crypto, just really came in because they like the idea of sound money. They didn't need the rest of the nonsense a lot of the cryptoverse talks about, but they stayed for the revolution.
Absolutely.
I do love a quote from Assange back in 2017 where they had amassed, I think, something like 4,000 bitcoins, which were worth quite a bit there at the peak of that run. But he said, my deepest thanks to U.S. government, Senator McCain, and Senator Lieberman for pushing Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, Amex, Mooney Bookers et al. Into erecting an illegal blanking blockade against WikiLeaks starting in 2010. It caused us to invest in Bitcoin with a 50,000% return.
That's I think that's great. I love that tweet, and it just goes to show you, I mean, the revolution is going to be funded by cryptocurrency and money that can't be controlled, because anything that could be controlled, there's no change that's going to be allowed there. But I really like that people are rallying behind Assange in this time. As I said, this is an incredibly scary precedent for journalists. We should all be really worried about what's going on here, and more people should be speaking out about this. So I just wanted to give that brief overview starting off the show, because I think it's just super important topic to cover. And now we're going to be moving on. I have a couple of special guests that I'm going to bring in right now into the show. Very, very delighted to have Vlad, Costea, and Blakely Jones on the show. They're, of course, from CryptoInsider. Now, all of you know that I have a partnership with CryptoInsider. You can see at the bottom of this screen. Gosh, I got something in my throat. Sorry. Take over, Chris.
CryptoInsider has been a sponsor of Naomi's show for a few weeks now. We've done some videos together while Naomi's dying in the background. Hopefully I can introduce them and let them start talking about the topics they wanted to come here to talk about. I believe the topics they had
I'm sorry, I just threw you in there.
Some of them,
I'm just dying on this end.
That's fine.
Like crying so I don't know what's stuck in my throat. That's what happens in live television. So mind my very sad looking face from the tears from me choking. But welcome to the show, Vlad and Blakely. Now, all of you would have seen on crypto Twitter at the moment something interesting going on. Suddenly everyone has the same Twitter name, everyone has the same Twitter profile picture, everyone is hashtagging a thing that says we are all Hodlonaut. So I'm going to hand over the reins to these delightful gentlemen to kind of talk about this topic. There's a great article in CryptoInsider at the moment. I would love for all of you to check that out, but it basically outlines what's going on in this battle between Hodlonaut and Craig Wright. And it's not a battle that's just between those two. Craig, as we know, has been going after a whole lot of people, but I'll hand over to you. Welcome to the show, Vlad. This is the first time you've been on the show, I believe.
Hello, yeah. I haven't been on the show, but I guess Blakely has invited me a couple of times, and I was like, no, you get the spotlight. I don't care much about it.
No, it's always wonderful having Blakely on. But you wrote this great article, and you talk about the bounty on Hodlonaut's head. Hodlonaut obviously is an anonymous Twitter person, but go into some detail and explain the situation, what's been going on in the Twitter sphere about this.
Well, thanks for the compliment on the article. First of all, I want to say that I did an interview with Hodlonaut the next day after he started the movement with the Torch, with the Lightning Network Trust Chain. And we spoke a little. I posted the interview, and I noticed that there were a few people from the BSV side using that interview as a way of identifying him. And the moment when I saw that, I realized that I'm part of a witch hunt, and I don't want this type of material to be used in a rather abusive initiative, which basically turns an angry mob against an individual. And that is not the right way of conducting affairs. So if you ask me, and if Craig Wright wanted to really sue Hodlonaut, he could use his team of lawyers to pursue him with legal means and not make it public. But this initiative is much more of an attempt to silence the critics and make everybody delete the comments which claim that he's a fraud. And much more than that, we know that Craig Wright is in a lawsuit with Mr. Kleinman, who is deceased right now. And there is this allegation from his family that he might have taken some Bitcoins and made some false claims. And I don't want to get too much into that. And I definitely wouldn't want to be Peter McCormack right now and get a letter in my mail with a citation and receive all these demands in which I have to basically say that I was wrong when I assumed that he's not Satoshi. And then again, I also have to issue some kind of court statement in which I acknowledge that he's Satoshi in negative terms. So I apologize for saying that he's not Satoshi, which means that he is Satoshi. And it's a great way for him to use that, because he will basically say, these people are my opponents in terms of crypto and ideological terms, yes. And they agree that I'm Satoshi. They basically apologized for not agreeing with me, which means that I have some kind of validation from the kind of people who otherwise would not testify in my favor. So I think there's a greater game to play in this situation, and we should be cautious about what we do. We should not give too much attention to this kind of lawsuit trolling. But at the same time, we should also make sure that people are informed about the real facts. So it's a slippery slope. On one hand, you don't want to give too much attention to this kind of situation, but at the same time, you want people to know all sides of the story. Because CoinGeek and Kelvin Ayre and Craig S. Wright are very vocal, and they don't miss a chance to express their views. But at the same time, they want to silence all the critics. So the question is, in this situation, at least from my journalistic point of view, how do you phrase this kind of criticism in a way that you don't attract a lawsuit?
Yeah, it's a dangerous situation. I completely agree. There's a fine line there. Generally, the argument is just avoid the trolls, ignore them, don't feed them. That's the general advice that people give. And I think that Craig really does get a lot more attention because of people, pushing back on this and writing tweets like Peter McCormack did, where he's like, he's a fraud, retweet if you agree, that sort of stuff, which is the type of stuff that's been cited in this note from their lawyer. And I just think maybe we need to stop giving so much attention there. But that being said, we have someone very prominent. We have CZ Binance, did I just call him CZ Binance?
You did.
Because that's his full official name. That is what his actual name is. Little known fact there. So he tweeted out, Craig Wright is not Satoshi, full stop. Any more of this shit, we delist. And I think the point of that is to kind of, detract and say, well, I'm just one more of the people who are saying this. If he wants to file lawsuits, he has to file it against all of us, and that's going to become a very time-consuming, expensive endeavor. And also, I would be quite happy to put out a tweet that says Craig Wright has not proven that he is Satoshi, and there are very easy ways that he could do so. So, it's crazy that this person is going after lawsuits and all of this kind of really gross dealings with people, threatening them, pushing them to say things, when he could just very easily put all of the trolls to rest. And people have asked him that before. They've said, listen, just publicly sign this, statement. Show us that you have access to the keys, all of this. And his response has been, I'm done jumping through hoops. I'm not going to do it anymore, And so it's just very clear what game is being played here.
One hoop. He just needs to jump through one hoop.
But it's a big hoop. Don't make me. I'm done jumping through the hoop. It's just. Yeah. It's crazy. So there's a lot going on right now, but there's been this movement, and the idea is that everyone's kind of getting behind Hodlonaut, and people don't want this anonymous tweeter that Craig wants to unveil and sue and all of this. They don't want them to have their identity revealed. So everyone's kind of changing their name to We Are All Hodlonaut, or just Hodlonaut itself, changing their profile pictures so it all looks the same. So now Twitter is like this murky den of Hodlonauts, which is, I always enjoy crypto Twitter movements. They always amuse me, and it makes me delight in the internet in general.
Yeah,
But don't
I
worry.
guess Hodlonaut is much more of a symbol than he is a personality, as he has been a Bitcoiner for a long time. And he is not really anonymous, but he's pseudonymous. So he has posted several pictures of himself, none of them which include his face. But at the same time, he kept low profile, but not that low profile to call him anonymous.
Right.
So he tried to engage with the community and show that he's a real person, mention some details about his life. I think he's a parent, he's 30-something, he has some tattoos on his arms. And all these details were used by CoinGeek yesterday in their article to put a $5,000 bounty on his head, and anyone who can provide details which reveal his identity is going to get $5,000, but not in cash, but in BSV, which I guess is not going to be worth that much in a year. But anyway, that's not the point of this discussion. The community is supporting Hodlonaut for what he stood for and for the kind of involvement that he had, and as a way of showing that we are not intimidated by these bully tactics.
I really
It's not really about Hodlonaut in the sense that maybe that he's a martyr in this situation. And we are following this whole process of sanctifying him and turning him into this figure which was righteous and virtuous. But I got to talk to him, and I know that he's a regular person just like you and me. So it's not about his personality, it's much more about the idea that he was the kind of person who always expressed his real thoughts, and he did not want to be silenced or intimidated, and nor will we as a community. It's important to maintain free speech. It's one of the fundamental ideas which stood at the core, ideology of Bitcoin. When we first started here, it was all about this libertarian movement, and the people who were getting into Bitcoin were driven much more by their fundamental ideology than they were by the idea that they might be making financial gains. I guess the speculators came into this game much later. So free speech is fundamental. The real Satoshi would never do this. So if you follow the Bitcoin Talk threads, you can see that he never threatened anyone. He never tried to silence the critics. Even when there were divergent opinions, he was moderate, and he was trying to get them on their side with technical arguments rather than lawsuits and threats and all these sorts of initiatives which are kind of ridiculous. So if you claim to be Satoshi while doing this, I mean, there's nothing cypherpunk about lawyers and hiding behind.
It's like the antithesis of everything that Bitcoin stands for. And it's just crazy that people could be into cryptocurrency and supportive of this type of stuff. It's insane. I just posted the link to the CryptoInsider article in the chat. I encourage everyone to read it and just to follow what's going on. It's a great article. You did an amazing job there, Vlad. I really appreciate that. But Blakely, did you have anything you wanted to comment on this?
Oh, no. I just wanted to come on and then watch my buddy Vlad here take care of business. To come on and say I might not be the most informed guy, but my team is. And Vlad is one of the best ones we've got.
No, he absolutely is. I appreciate you both being here. So just to reiterate, I know I had a coughing fit right before I was about to say this before. So let's try one more time. CryptoInsider has been a huge supporter of my show. They've been really amazing. As you can see, like at the bottom, they're a sponsor. So I always put their address there so you can check out their articles. But I would really appreciate if everyone could head over to their website and check out their stuff and be a supporter of the news site that is helping be a supporter of my news program, because that would really mean a lot to me. So I've added that in just to start off with the article about all of this Hodlonaut fiasco. It's just insane. You're going into all the nitty-gritty of what's going on, all of the lawsuits. I mean, I can't even keep track of what's going on with Craig Wright at the moment because there are just there's so much coercion and bullying tactics and intimidation. And you're absolutely right, Vlad, when you said that, like, it's all about a power play. It's all about the bullying and intimidation. And that's just not the ethos of crypto. The whole idea of crypto is a voluntary system. You can opt out if you don't want to be part of it. There's someone that's trying to herald themselves as this leader and, follow me, and you must do this, and you must toe the line with the narrative. I mean, it's all very suspect.
There is also another dimension to all this, and defamation in itself is a civil law case. So if somebody says anything which causes you harm, financially or in terms of public image, you can sue them and conduct this in a civil court. But when you go as far as putting a bounty on somebody's head and you treat them their integrity, I mean in physical terms, their safety, their reputation, their families, their sense of security, because after all, how can you be Hodlonaut right now and not be scared of what can happen if somebody reveals the information and follows the bounty? Well, then I guess he cannot live in his house anymore. There are chances that people can call the police and SWAT him, just like it happened with Jameson Lopp and countless others.
No, it's happened all the time. It happens to YouTubers all the time, people who just get doxxed. It happened to Funface.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was this. Yeah, well, I mean, it was kind of like a fake ploy. He was trying to weed out who the privacy supporters were and who the fakers were, and tweeted out a photo. Someone retweeted. It was like, "Oh my god, he just doxed himself!" And then they did these private messages where he's like, "Dude, please remove that picture. I really want you to." And it was all a ploy. But essentially, he went off the internet. He deleted his account. He's like, he just kind of went silent. There was this big crusade. There was like a candlelit vigil on a detractor's Twitter page so that we could all share our support and our fun face stories. That was very moving. A lot of things happened there. I shared my stories about how I had this person or thing or group of people blocked for a long time because they were absolutely out of control and obnoxious and terrible. But I've taken a liking to whoever this fun-faced person is. But like, doxing is a really serious thing, and I even though at the time I'd only just unblocked him, I very much came out in opposition to this person who's like retweeting this fake photo, because that's not cool. It's dangerous. It's dangerous for people's families. It's if someone wants to have privacy, they should be granted that. People should respect
much more than that. It's a case of criminal law. So if defamation is about civil law, which can be settled with a fine or with an amount of money that you're giving to the person who is suing you, then in the case of criminal law, it's about going to prison. It's about infringing fundamental human rights that are provided in Article 12 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and also Article 17 of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. So if you're going that far, it's very dangerous, and you're setting the kind of precedent that is very slippery. And I don't think Craig Wright is dumb enough to go that far. But then again, why did that article emerge? Why was it posted? If not to start this kind of witch hunt against Hodlonaut and try to silence all the critics and maybe gain legitimacy in the face of the newbies coming into this space, who see all these events and say, okay, this guy is so serious about his position as Satoshi that he is willing to sue anyone who is even questioning his position. So yeah, I don't know, if I were 18 and had some money to invest and got into Bitcoin, I'm not sure which side of Bitcoin I would be attracted to, because one of them has utmost confidence and tries to prove through blog posts. I'm not sure if you follow Craig Wright on Medium, but all the time he comes up with these stories about what he was doing around the time when he was creating Bitcoin and all the background. And the most recent post gives details about buying the bitcoin.org domain and says that he has done it with his own credit card and has a screenshot, which is ridiculous. When does anyone take screenshots when registering a domain? when you don't know that your invention, if you're Satoshi, you had no idea it would ever get this big. And we
I just happen to get receipts of everything I do in my life, and I document them so I can find them with easy access later on. And I have hundreds of terabytes worth of data documenting my life just in case something like this comes up. Like, I mean, it's all very suspect. And I think that the main thing, the takeaway here is just like the bullying aspect. And it's just, I really appreciate the people in the community who are standing up to him and who aren't being intimidated. And I think that's important in the community to not be silenced. And if you see something going wrong, you should speak out and not be afraid to, and not be intimidated by people and you know, the repercussions of that. I think that is what maintains the reputation system and keeps it all moving.
Yeah, and it's a slippery slope also, because it's not defamation if you can prove it. And I know that some people have made a website which contains all the information in which Craig Wright was fraudulent and provided false documents in order to prove that he's Satoshi, because he is known to forge PGP keys. He has tried to Photoshop screenshots and tried to get into elite circles. And I think, Naomi, you have been around for long enough to remember Bitcoin Bell.
Yeah.
And she was the one who introduced Satoshi. Fuck. She is the one who introduced
oh
Craig
gosh,
Wright.
was that? Don't
This is
say
a
that.
family show.
I just had a Freudian slip.
You did. Terrible.
That's okay.
So she was the one who introduced to this community Craig Wright, and they had this type of relationship, which is documented in her book. And I think Chris DeRose was the one who was promoting her book, and there's also a Medium post about it. So before Bitcoin Bell, nobody knew about Craig Wright, and it was her who trusted him that he could be Satoshi. It was her who introduced him to Roger Ver and to a lot of influential people. And he basically dumped her, hurt her feelings, and made her look bad. And you can see, I think it's on YouTube, a conference from 2015 or 2016, where she moderated a panel where you had Trace Mayer, you had Nick Szabo, who is, in my book, the most likely person to be Satoshi. And all of them were accompanied by Craig Wright, who was on the big screen, like the Wizard of Oz, like a projection. And they had this debate where, at the time, Craig Wright was not so fluent in talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah, there was also JVP was also there as well on the panel, if I remember.
I think so.
Yeah.
And he basically implied that Bitcoin is Turing complete.
Well, I think that he also, when he announced himself in that episode, I want to wrap up on this because I want to move on to some other news, but I remember him saying, someone was like, oh, and how long have, I think Bitcoin Bell was like, how long have you been involved with Bitcoin? And he kind of laughed and smugly was like, really, really long time, really, from the start. That was kind of his foray into the public world of this new persona that he was adopting there. I mean, it's crazy. We could do a whole episode on Craig Wright and all of the red flags that have been brought up. You mentioned that they're documented on this website, so maybe we can do that as a later episode if you're interested. We can kind of talk through the recycled keys that we used, all of these things that happen that just kind of show like, wow, this is just someone who's there's this easy thing that could be done, and instead they're going this hard roundabout route where they happen to have an explanation for everything, but all the red flags should be making people wonder about this whole thing, and it's surprising that there are so many supporters out there. But thank you so much to both of you for being on the show. It's wonderful to get your insight and to be talking about this. As I said, the article is great, so I'll post the link again if you guys wanted to all check that out, and there's heaps of other stuff on there. As you know, we're going through all of the latest headlines from the week, which you can also find on CryptoInsider, and they will all be posted in the video description. So thank you both for joining me, and we'll head on to the next subject.
It's been a
thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, no worries. So I would like to introduce the show, and let me admit him into the room right now. we have Edan Yago. Now, he's an awesome dude that I meet at many conferences along the way, and also a stablecoin expert. So I wanted to talk about some of the stuff going on with MakerDao in the news this week, which has been pretty significant. But welcome to the show, Edan.
Thanks for having me. Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I'm sorry, Chris, you're not getting much of a word in here.
It's okay.
You and I are the
talk about how Craig is, working on a metanet with no trolls, and then make a snide comment of then why would he be? He couldn't be on there.
Okay, no, totally do that. I will give you. This is your platform. Let's talk about that before we move on to MakerDao.
So 9 hours ago, another CoinGeek article on Dr. Craig Wright is working on a metanet with no trolls. Basically, it's a social network powered by BSV that's going to introduce microtransactions to contact people, and you can put the cost for trolls to contact you is too high, so nobody would ever do it. And of course, the obvious comment there is Craig's like the worst of all the trolls, so he would never get to contact anyone, and he would just be all alone on his new little fancy internet built on top of BSV that he can sit there and pretend to be the king of his own hill there.
Indeed. So, I mean, we could, as I said, we could talk about Craig all day, but I would not subject anyone to that. So let's move on and talk about MakerDao. And just before we start, can you just give us an overview, Edan, of what MakerDao is? So I've recorded an interview on stablecoins, and that's going to be released soon. But in this interview, I mean, we basically talk about the difference between collateralized stablecoins and the idea of having decentralized smart contracts, which are used as stablecoins. And that's what MakerDao is. So kind of give us an overview of how this works, and then we'll talk about the news here.
So MakerDao is a pretty brilliant thing. Basically, it's a way for people to create dollars or dollar equivalents on-chain that are not issued by the Federal Reserve or by any bank. And the way they do it is you create a smart contract and you collateralize the smart contract with ETH. So let's say you want to make $100 worth of dollars, or what in the Maker system is called DAI. So you would collateralize that smart contract with $200 worth of ETH, and then the contract effectively lends you newly minted DAI, and so you're kind of borrowing from yourself. And now you have these dollar equivalent coins that you can transact with other people, and they know that they can get at least $1 worth of ETH back for this, and that's what gives the dollar equivalents to it.
So the idea is that the smart contract always gives you that, and you over collateralize into the contract.
That's right. So there's a number of oracles that monitor the price of ETH to the dollar on different exchanges. And if the price of ETH starts to collapse, that's why you're over collateralized. And if it hits 150%, then they start to liquidate you. So they try to make sure that it never gets to a point that you are under collateralized. And what the smart contract starts doing is it starts selling the ETH and buying back DAI. So reducing the supply of DAI. And in that way, through the forces of supply and demand, the idea is that by reducing the supply of DAI, you can always increase its price.
So it's as you said, it's like a pretty brilliant idea, and there are some inherent. There are trade-offs there whenever you're dealing with any kind of stable coin. You can either have like centralized, and you have people literally buying back and forth, which obviously there are vulnerabilities in as well. I've talked about those on the show, giving an example with what happened with Soros when he broke the Bank of England. Then you have like a decentralized contract, smart contract that creates this stable coin. I mean, one of the vulnerabilities there, as you talked about, there's huge volatility in cryptocurrency. So let's say that you're collateralizing an extra 100% of whatever the value is, but then the price increases by 1,000%, which isn't completely out of the question. I mean, weird things happen in crypto and it goes up and down. So there are inherent dangers here. And some of this, I mean, this can be reflected in what's happened in the news this week. So MakerDao to increase fees above 10% in a bid to stabilize the DAI stablecoin. So they're increasing fees, and there have been lots of votes in the past 3 months to keep increasing fees, I believe. But give us an overview of what's been happening with this.
So when you create this loan to yourself, you pay interest on it. The interest at the beginning of the year was an APR of 0.5%. The interest which is going to exist right now is 7.5%, and they voted to raise it to 10.5%. And they've been raising the interest rates quite dramatically. Now, actually, 0.5% APR to borrow dollars collateralized by ETH is extremely low. So if you go to one of the services like Nexo, who will take your ETH, use it as collateral, and lend you dollars, they're making you pay 16, 20% APR. So 0.5% was crazy low. And as a result, everyone flocked to this contract, started depositing their ETH into it to lever up their ETH, and started creating a huge amount of DAI. And the thing is, the supply is there, but the demand for DAI isn't really. And so when you've done this to lever up, you basically want to sell your ETH, but who are you selling it to? So there's not that many people yet who are using or who need to use DAI on a day-to-day basis. And so most of the people who are buying DAI are people who, at this point, are probably buying DAI because it's currently trading at 95 cents to the dollar. And they figure that eventually it's going to go back to its peg. And so they're going to make an easy 5%. But there's probably also limited supply, limited demand for that. And so what the Maker community and the people who are voting on the rates have been trying to do is raise the interest rate that people are doing to reduce the supply. In other words, to reduce the demand for these loans, which are called CDPs, and as a result, reduce the supply for DAI. This is a very, very tricky situation. So it could easily fail. And part of the problem is that they only really have one lever. They're planning to introduce an additional lever in the future, which is they will start paying interest to people who lock up DAI, in other words, remove it from supply. But right now, they don't have that lever. And some calculations have been done which show that because you can make so much money when Ether is going up by levering up on ETH, that even if the APR was 100% a year, it still wouldn't stop people from creating these loans and flooding the market with the supply of DAI. So Maker is a huge experiment. If successful, it's amazing because it's a way in which people are creating dollars on blockchain that are not issued by a bank or a Federal Reserve. But on the other hand, it's kind of like a decentralized or semi-decentralized Federal Reserve in that they're trying to, control the currency by changing interest rates. So it's a grand experiment, and hopefully it won't be a grand failure.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. There are a few smart contracts out there that are trying to deal with this sort of thing, and I think MakerDao seems like the largest one at the moment. And I mean, it is very interesting. I think that there's a great use case for stable coins, as we've obviously seen. There's a great market demand for them. So if this can get off the ground and be something that kind of creates stability in terms of purchasing power for your money, it could be very interesting.
Right. So one of the things that's happening with Maker right now is there's a lot of drama. And the drama is coming from two primary reasons. The first is that the major customers of their smart contract right now are not people who actually want DAI. They're people who probably mostly want to lever up ETH. And so they're really people who want the loans, the CDPs. And they don't want to pay interest. So they're pretty pissed that the interest rate keeps going up. Right. And the other drama is that the Maker is supposedly decentralized. And it's designed as a DAO. It's called MakerDao. And the idea is that the holders of the governance token, which is the Maker token, can vote to make changes to the system. But the number of votes that happen each time one of these decisions gets made is extremely small. So the actual votes, the number of tokens that are voting is quite high, but the number of people who hold those tokens that are voting is quite small.
Right.
And this is sort of reflective of a much bigger problem, which is that the truth is that all of these systems, even Bitcoin, start out basically centralized.
Right.
Satoshi could have done whatever he wanted, introduced any change that he wanted through 2009, and probably, pretty much until the point that he disappeared. And so all of these organizations and all of these systems in their nascent phase, and sometimes even not in their nascent phase, remain pretty centralized. But there's this huge pressure to say they're decentralized, both because that's what we're aspiring to, but also because if you're not decentralized, or specifically if you're not sufficiently decentralized, the SEC start knocking on your door. And so this is creating all kinds of weird sort of kabuki decentralization, and is also putting pressure on projects to sort of prematurely decentralize. And I think this is a broader problem with the governance and the entrepreneurship that is possible in the crypto space.
Yeah, for sure. And there's also, you're talking about the board members and like the amount of people who hold the tokens, like who have voting power there. And there's been a lot of kind of controversy surrounding that this week as well. So MakerDao community is saying that there are transparency issues. No one knows who runs the MakerDao Foundation. They have 27% of all MakerDao governance tokens in existence. So talking about like decentralized and centralization, obviously they start out with a very small pool of people, and all of the resources are sort of packed into just this small area. And then as the network grows, obviously that becomes more decentralized. But there are people who are wondering about this. But I want to move on from here. But thank you so much, Edan, for joining me on the show and walking us through this.
Anytime.
Yeah, if anyone else has questions about MakerDao or DAI, their stable coin, then maybe we'll do an episode. Just let me know in the comments if you want to see something like that. We can maybe dedicate a whole episode to just walking people through what this is. But thank you so much, Edan.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All
Cheers.
right, see ya. So now on the show, we are going to introduce someone who has been on the show quite a lot before. We have Ashe Oro, and some interesting things have gone on in EOS this week. So I wanted to just welcome him here while Chris sadly sits in the corner and doesn't get a word in. Hi, welcome. But welcome, Ashe. And one of the most exciting things that happened just 3 hours ago was the constitution on EOS that everyone has issues with, and we've talked about in the past, and that it's been problematic. So that's actually been removed 3 hours ago. So welcome and talk us through what's going on.
Breaking news. Yeah. So, like I said, I think the last time I was on your show is the interim constitution, which was kind of created by Block One, by employees of Block One for the most part, and launched when the blockchain launched, has now been replaced. If you recall, there was a lot of confusion and some consternation around the original constitution, where funds frozen and all this stuff, key switches. Well, that stuff is gone. The monopoly of the core arbitration form is gone as well now, and we're getting back to just straight up delegated proof of stake governance as on EOS as it was intended. So yeah, just past 3 hours ago, it was originally authored by EOS New York, which is an active block producer and has been ever since the mainnet launched in June of last year. And it's a great and welcome simplification for the EOS community. I think it's very, very pro-business.
I really like the sound of that. As you mentioned, we talked about this on the show. The consternation over the Constitution was quite severe. So I think that the fact that that's been removed and there's no longer this strange potential and vulnerability,
unknown.
Yeah. We don't. Things like that are definitely weak spots that can be easily leveraged to the detriment of the community. So it's nice that kind of vulnerability has been taken off the table.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it also speaks to the ability of EOS community to govern themselves on chain. This was an on-chain change away from the interim constitution, and now we're calling it the EOS user agreement. And basically it just tries to define who the BPs are and what the expectations of BPs are and block producers and stuff like that. But as all blockchains are currently trying to figure out how to do on-chain governance, I think this speaks very highly of how EOS was designed, that we were able to come together as a community, and 15 out of our 21 block producers felt confident enough with the votes that they have from the token holders to enact this change. So yeah, I think this is a huge milestone. I think we're going to look back onto this and see it as a pretty significant milestone in blockchain governance in general.
Very, very cool. And just one more thing before I let you go. So I wanted to talk about the freelance job market that is moving at 700,000 users to EOS. That seems pretty exciting.
Yeah, I think this just came out yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, and it is exciting. I mean, here is a proven business model with a community already built, and it's just a really good reason for them to integrate blockchain accounts specifically. Their idea is they want you to have a freelancer account that you can carry with you really anywhere that you do work in the gig economy. Right now we have Fiverr and Upwork and all these different places where you have to prove yourself of what type of credentials you have or what type of experience you have. But, the company's name is called Moonlighting, and they said they've been exploring blockchain protocols since 2017 and chose EOS due to its ability to scale transaction processing right now, free transactions for users, and the ease of account management. So I think this is great. Blockchains allow us to control our identity, and why not let people, freelancers in the gig economy, do that exactly?
Absolutely. So there is an expo in San Francisco happening this weekend. If anyone wants to check it out, it's like a job fair mixed with like an unconference type thing. It's called the EOS World Expo. So happening tomorrow and the next day in San Francisco. I think there was some talk on Twitter. Brock Pierce was trying to get me in as an MC. So I don't think that'll happen, seeing as it is Friday evening, and it begins on Saturday morning over the other side of the country. But if it happens, maybe it'll be a surprise. Maybe
if I end up throwing a conference, I'll hit you up for the MC position. How about that?
Absolutely. But thanks so much, Ash, for coming on the show.
Welcome.
It's wonderful. Yeah, just sharing the EOS news. So
sure.
let's move on here. I want to talk a little bit about the most popular YouTuber of all time, who literally just signed an exclusive contract to a crypto blockchain YouTube type platform. Of course, we're talking about PewDiePie. And he just moved over, as I said, exclusive contract with Lino Network. Now, Lino Network, I don't know, Chris, I want to talk to you about this. I don't know anything about Lino Network. They've been covered in TechCrunch. They kind of get a lot of publicity, but in the crypto space, I haven't heard much chatter. So let's talk a little bit about this.
Well, Lino, as far as I can tell, is still in its testnet phase, and that's where dLive is actually running, is on Lino's testnet. There are no Lino tokens to trade on any exchanges that I've seen or know of. I haven't been able to find it on any of the CMC-like sites. And it's just, they did a closed ICO in February 2018, raised $20 million, and they've been working on this, and dLive decided to move over to them late last year. So it's very interesting how much attention they're getting as such a young, and I have no idea who they are. So I thought that was odd that dLive is on Lino instead of some of the more well-known networks like, EOS that we just talked about, or some other ones.
For sure. I mean, PewDiePie has 93 million subscribers. He is by far the most popular. Like, if we're going to ask someone like an influencer.
Most popular, actually.
The what?
9th most popular on YouTube.
No way. Wasn't he like having a competition with T-Series for number one?
Well, I think ninth most earning.
Oh yeah, no, not talking about earning. In terms of subscribers, he is the most popular, unless T-Series has, increased again, which is like a Bollywood film, a music place. I'm not sure, but they were having a very public competition there. But I mean, if you're asking for publicity for the crypto space, something outside of the mainstream media narrative, which is this is a bubble, this is terrible, there's no use case, it's only used by drug dealers, and you have the most subscribed to YouTuber of all time saying, hey, exclusively going over to this blockchain platform. I mean, that seems like pretty incredible publicity, and no one's really talking about it. I mean, it seems really important.
I mean, not only is he moving over there exclusively, whatever that means and what that deal actually consists of, as an aside there, how decentralized is it if they have an exclusive deal? I don't know.
Yeah, that's another question,
I've
right?
had some good
Like, an
questions about
exclusive
that.
deal with Bitcoin. What?
Yeah.
What? How do you have an exclusive deal with Bitcoin? So
But-
yeah, exclusive deal with Lino network. So it's very very interesting.
He's not only going over there, he's actually donating $50,000 to 100 other creators that he'll like, I guess. And so he's trying to attract other people over to the platform with him. I mean, he made $15 million in 2018 on YouTube, which is, I'm sorry, that's just insane. He's making that much money on YouTube as somebody who's so controversial. But, you know, when you have like 4 million views in a day, I mean, basically PewDiePie, I can never say his name right, PewDiePie is more popular than MSNBC or CNN.
Oh, by far, absolutely, way
this
more
is
popular.
Ridiculous how much viewing he actually gets. And it's like, man, if you had told my like 16-year-old self that this was a potential career, man, I would have been right on this.
Absolutely.
But it is exactly what everybody has been waiting for, like you said. A major content producer going over to an alternate platform built in the crypto space is just what the crypto space needed.
Absolutely.
This is something that really is a big hit for YouTube, for Amazon with their Twitch, for all these mainstream streaming. Man, I'm going to keep repeating myself with some of these phrases. It's pretty stupid. Streaming services out
Mainstream
there.
streaming streamers. I mean, we've been talking about this. We've been talking about the cuts that YouTube has been taking. I mean, they provide a valuable service. They provide a vehicle for people to reach the world, and YouTube has, you know, done amazing things for the democratization of media. But then, you know, they rest on their laurels a bit, don't they? And they start to do things that put them in a bad position. They stop thinking about their consumers. And, you know, Google in general is just like a dodgy spying kind of company. So the fact that we now have competitors out there, and like we've been saying for a long time, you know, a competitor's going to spring up. People are going to go over to the next YouTube. It hasn't happened. YouTube is still by far the most popular streaming platform. And even though like they take 30% of super chats and they take, you know, all kinds of money, and they, you know, track everything, like people still use it, right? But here you have the most popular YouTuber out there who signed an exclusive contract with a different platform. It looks like maybe a move is starting to happen. Maybe we have a vehicle for like competitors to pop up. He says here, he said in the announcement, "I'm excited to start live streaming again regularly. dLive is great for me because I'm treated like a real partner, just like all of the other streamers on dLive's unique platform." And I think he's really hinting at the fact that Google, I mean, there isn't really a partnership there. And, you know, they have their studios where YouTubers can go and use it. But really, Google looks out for Google, YouTube looks out for YouTube, and these smaller platforms are coming out and maybe giving content creators more of what they're looking for, because PewDiePie certainly seems to think so.
Yeah, this is actually, I could go off on a couple tangents here. But you know, one of the things I'll just say, for all those people calling for regulation of social media and regulation of all this stuff, this is an example why that is not needed. Competition will arise, and competition in a free market will allow for these other archaic institutions to go the way of MySpace.
Absolutely.
And so as we continue down this road of more and more alternatives and easier to make alternatives, because, you know, frankly, dLive's not special in any particular way. They could have gone with BitChute, could have gone with a few others. dLive just happens to fit him right, I guess, whatever the reason is. Not disparaging dLive, just saying it's not that hard to make a dLive-like service these days, thankfully.
Yeah.
As more and more of them come up, there won't be a need for these gatekeepers that we have now, and they will just wander off. Whereas if we had regulation enshrining our existing social media structure as the commonplace, then all these startups have a much harder time bringing in a user base, because they'd be swimming upstream against government regulation as well. And that's why we call it regulatory capture, boys and girls.
Yeah, I mean, PewDiePie, he's been, as you said, he's very controversial. He's kind of been in battle with the Wall Street Journal for a while, who's been labeling him all kinds of things, as white supremacist, all of this. And PewDiePie's made a huge number of videos saying, like, no, not at all. And honestly, I'm on PewDiePie's side for that, because if you actually look at what Wall Street Journal's doing, like, it really is slander, because they're showing clips of PewDiePie where he's saying things, but he's saying them actually mocking other people who he thinks are, these white supremacist, racist characters. It's not him saying it as him. He's like, being very self-aware and making note and sort of bringing down other people that he disagrees with. And so as I said, Wall Street Journal and him have this very combative relationship. But I wonder if this is all sort of and people love or hate PewDiePie. Like, I think most of my friends kind of just don't kind of find his content that interesting. I think that there's some interesting stuff on his channel. I don't mind it at all. But that's just me. But I think, I don't know what you think, Chris. I know you probably
I don't think I've ever seen one of his shows the entire.
Really? Well, I think he had this really nice episode on microaggressions that I really enjoyed. He pulled clips from a Reason piece with Zach Weissenmuller, who was interviewing people on a college campus. And it was really I was quite shocked. I was like, wow, PewDiePie made this? I didn't expect someone who's so popular to make something that was very much against the SJW narrative, like everything's a microaggression. And, so I found it very interesting.
He did just have a judge in India. He did just have a judge in India tell him to take down 2 videos for insulting Indians and their people or whatnot.
Oh, did he really? I haven't. Yeah. I don't really watch it, so I haven't looked into it. But I'd be interested to look into that. But I do think that as more censorship comes around, it's probably important for someone who is controversial like him. Maybe he does say things that offend people, and I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying it makes sense that he would want to safeguard himself against the possibility that maybe he gets deplatformed, which isn't entirely off the cards.
Absolutely. I mean, this is excellent news for anybody else in his position who's actually afraid of this, because now dLive is a legitimate alternative to YouTube, and I'm sure we're going to work at live streaming to both YouTube and dLive going forward.
Absolutely. I'm going to try and figure that out. If anyone has tips for like restreaming services, then let me know. I'm going to test all of that out. But let's move on. There's one more thing that I want to bring up before we wrap up on this wonderful Friday evening. I want to talk about bit licenses. We've talked about it in the past. I think 2 episodes ago, we talked about someone who was granted the 18th bit license in New York across years and years of this thing being in operation. And now we've just had Bitstamp, who's granted a bit license. They're going to be expanding crypto services in the US, and that's great news for Bitstamp. And I just really want to highlight how few of these things get given out. It really is just this racket, this cartel where they just killed innovation in New York. So it's very sad to see. But any new ones that get added, that's great. I'm always hesitant when I look at the companies that get added. Obviously, like the second bit license of all time that was ever given was given to a company where the board member was the architect of the bit license himself, Ben Lawsky. So it seems a little incestuous there for my liking. But then at the same time, Bittrex customers. So Bittrex's bit license has just been revoked because apparently their customers were using fake names like Donald Duck and Elvis to trade. And so now the exchange is leaving New York. The gods giveth and they taketh away.
Yeah, that I mean, I'm not shocked by that, because why would you use a real name if you didn't have to? But this just talks more about how hostile the regulatory environment in the US is to these companies and how difficult it is for them to do business or for you to trade and not have your name publicly known. So this is just highly entertaining, and I'm glad I don't live in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just crazy. There's this takedown letter that was sent, and it's apparently pretty brutal. I'll put a link in the video details if anyone wants to read that. But, it's really sad that you have this centralized organization that is dictating which companies can and can't operate as a business. It's just, I hate to see that, but it is what it is, and New York is not a good place for crypto, so we'll just have to look to other places. One other thing that I was going to bring up later in the show, but we kind of ran out of time. So Gibraltar, apparently, I mean, my eyes been on them for a while with what's going on there and their potentiality for doing interesting things in the blockchain space. But the blockchain, the Gibraltar Stock Exchange, apparently they're listing a whole bunch of security backed tokens and things like that on there. So that's interesting. Like other jurisdictions that are doing much better than New York, basically.
Well, a lot of money will flow into locations that are actually willing to service this, and they'll flow out of the United States to do that. And that's not what the United States wants. It's for people live in the United States. That'll be harder on us in the long run, I imagine, and we'll get behind in the innovation in those areas. But it's just how it is, and how when dealing with a overbearing regulatory state, that's what you get.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you have the Nick Cowan, who's the Gibraltar Stock Exchange CEO and the founder of the Gibraltar Stock Exchange Group. He said in response to what he's just done, he says, we aim to leverage blockchain to open up greater liquidity pools, making illiquid assets more accessible and set the foundations to better democratize capital markets. So that all sounds pretty promising. Gibraltar has been, people are looking to it as maybe a great crypto hub for people. Other contenders are Malta, and you've got Bermuda is another one people are looking to. Puerto Rico was up in the air. I'm not sure what's happening there, but everyone's looking to basically these smaller places and seeing what's going to go on there in terms of regulation. But that is all the time we have today. Any final words, Chris, before we bid everyone a wonderful weekend?
Well, that's the way to go. These small countries will continue to innovate, and that's why larger countries like the United States have a hard time with innovation, because we have too large of a state overbearing on everything and insisting to be involved on everything.
Absolutely. And America won't keep its dominant position for long if they keep up with this sort of thing. This is not a good way to keep innovation and jobs and flow of capital in your country. As you mentioned, Chris, it's all flowing out. So I do want to take this opportunity to give some huge thank you. So starting with Juicy G, who says, think you could ask Jesse Powell, the Kraken CEO, next time you have him on, when they're going to give their clients their Bitcoin Gold. I assume they still have those coins. They didn't have a problem giving people BSV coins. I have never had Jesse on the show, although I would love to. Jesse, if you ever want to come on the show, that would be sensational. Would love to have you on. But Juicy G, I presume that if Kraken said that they weren't going to support Bitcoin Gold, then they're probably not going to support it. And if your money wasn't taken out of there when Bitcoin Gold came about, then you probably won't get it. But feel free to reach out to Jesse in person, or when he's on my show, which I hear is imminent. Definitely happening sometime, I hope. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on there. I presume it's just at the discretion of the exchange, but I feel your pain if you've lost coins there. Then we have Dragon Wolf Tech, who says, hi everyone, make sure you head over to Bitbacker so you can send Naomi a power chat, which he has, using crypto and become a sponsor to support her work. I really, really appreciate that, Jason. It means a lot, and using Bitbacker means a lot too. There are a lot of great content creators there that you can support using crypto instead of dirty fiat. So that is always nice. And they don't take 30% like Google. So maybe we should let PewDiePie know. Can we go on a mission? Can I have like a call to action? Like, can we just message PewDiePie and say, hey, go over to Bitbacker. You can earn all kinds of crypto rather than the test network coin on the Linus network that isn't tradable or valuable at the moment. Let's let PewDiePie know about the other options out there. And then we have Exciting World Cryptos, JR, who said the crypto community is full of intriguing minds, whether it's for a good cause or even a bad cause. It makes the entire neighborhood of any topics worth discussing at any time, which can create new solutions and ideas when one may not realize it. I love that. What a great comment. Thank you, JR. He has an awesome YouTube channel as well, as does Jason, Dragon Wolf Tech. You can look for both of those on YouTube and check out their content. And I have had Jason on the show before, but not JR, so maybe we'll bring him on the show sometime to talk about one of the things that he's been reporting on. But check out their videos, and I really appreciate all the support on Bitbacker. It does mean a huge amount. And a huge thank you to everyone in the chat today. I love you guys being here. This is my favorite part of the week. I get to chill out on a Friday afternoon, chat to awesome people online, and then I have this chat room filled with great people who I just get to spend time with and hang out with. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Thank you for watching the show, and thank you to everyone who sent a power chat. Most of all, thank you to my guests on the show today, and thank you, Chris, for always being so wonderful and giving us your time on a Friday afternoon. Wonderful as always to have you here.
It was a very exciting show with all the guests today.
Absolutely. All the guests. So let's bring them in. One day I want to test it out. Maybe we can try this. You guys can tell me if this is a terrible idea or not. I value your opinion, everyone in the chat room right now. I want to do a guest call-in show. If anyone is willing to test this out with me, maybe we can try it out this weekend. We'll do an impromptu guest call-in show. I don't know what we're going to talk about. You guys can bring in any topic that you want and just call in and we'll chat. And I'm going to see how that goes because I think that'd be fun. And I'm not doing anything this weekend, so let's try that out. And just a final goodbye as we head off here. CryptoInsider. They're a huge supporter of this show. I couldn't make this segment without them. So to show your support of the show that is supporting me, head over to their website, check out their news. They're a wonderful news organization that covers all the latest in crypto. They've covered all of this Hodlonaut saga that's been going on, so check out what they've written about that. But just go thank them for being a supporter of this show. I would really appreciate that. And just check out their content for your sake because they have great stuff there. And that is everything for today. I feel like I just talked really fast, but that's everything. I hope you all have the most wonderful weekend and go and enjoy yourselves. And I think Game of Thrones comes out this weekend. Is that right?
That is right, but that is not something I watch, oddly enough.
Oh my gosh, Chris, get on to that. We're not going to have this conversation now because I can't say goodbye 15 times. I always do it. I always hate going. I like spending time with you guys, so I just prolong it. And I'm like, here's another thing that I could talk about. So I'm not going to prolong it, but we're going to have an offline chat about why you should get into Game of Thrones. I was going to have a watching party for Game of Thrones, but my house was destroyed. I haven't talked about that yet. I was going to do an episode, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I was so sad. But I'll let you guys know that I'm not doing a watching party anymore for obvious reasons, but I will keep you posted. But you guys go and you enjoy the show. Maybe we'll do a remote watching party. Would anyone be interested in a live? Okay, I got to end this episode. We're just going on fine now. If you guys are interested in a live watching party where we just hop in a Telegram group and we just live tweet with everyone, I think I'd find that really fun. So I'm going to let you guys go. This is for realsies. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, guests. Thank you, Power Chatters. Thank you, guests. See you, everyone. We are going.
Bye-bye.
For sure. Definitely leaving.